Seth Rollins has been causing a little bit of controversy online, on Twitter, and on social media in the past couple of days for a couple of different reasons. Now, we all know that Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley, did leave WWE a few weeks ago, and he did debut at All Elite Wrestling's Double or Nothing show in Las Vegas. And since that time, he's been very busy. He's been winning belts in New Japan, and he's been enjoying his life as an independent contractor in professional wrestling. And he has also done a couple of podcasts where he was very vocal on his issues with WWE and many of the reasons why he left. And I covered that extensively. If you want to hear my thoughts on Jon Moxley's appearance on Chris Jericho's podcast, I'll put a link right up there in the top right-hand corner for you guys. And for the most part, all of us wrestling fans appreciated his comments. We really liked it. What I liked the most about Moxley's comments, and I've said this before, is that I felt a big difference between his comments and CM Punk's comments. Because 5 years later, when you look back at CM Punk on Colt Cabana's podcast, you could just hear and feel the hate and the anger in his heart and soul. You know, he said he was happy, and he seemed to be moving on and happy to be rid of that company, but still you could feel so much just anger and resentment and bitterness in his voice. Moxley, on the other hand, was not to that level. He was very critical of WWE, especially the creative process and all of the issues that he had to deal with backstage, and the scripted promos and the micromanaging and all of the other huge problems that we've all heard about as fans for months and years now. And for him to be saying this out loud on podcasts, for us, we all thought was great because he's raising awareness. He's bringing these issues to light and letting people know that shit is really fucked up, and he's not the only piece of talent that's disgruntled. And I think we're all in agreement that the more stuff like this comes out, the better if we want to see changes internally in WWE. So I want to say that right up front before I start giving my opinions on Seth Rollins, because I don't want anybody to misunderstand anything that I say later on. But Dean Ambrose leaving the company, I thought, I was envious of him. If I was him and I was in a job that was just sucking my soul out day after day, I would be so liberated and so happy once I got the fuck out of there. And yeah, I might go on a podcast and run my mouth a little bit as well. But I think as long as you're not being vindictive or have any malice for the company or anything like that, and you're just voicing your disapproval or offering your criticisms, I think Dean Ambrose or Jon Moxley is well within his rights to do that. And I loved literally everything he said when he discussed his departure from the company, what led to it, and all of the bullshit he had to deal with while he was there. Now, in the past several weeks, some WWE talent has started firing back. I think Xavier Woods has said a couple of things. Ironically, Drew McIntyre, a piece of talent that everybody virtually loves, said very much the same things that Rollins said in his interview that I'm going to talk about here in a minute on the Sports Illustrated Media podcast. And that's what really got the fans' panties in a bunch over the past 48 hours, apparently, was this interview. So you've had a couple of WWE stars here and there coming out basically just standing up for their team, right? And Seth Rollins has really done that. Now, he got himself in a little bit of hot water with the fans a few days ago prior to Stomping Grounds, a pay-per-view that every single fan in the world has been shitting on, has been extremely underwhelming. The enthusiasm for this pay-per-view is about as low as I can remember any WWE pay-per-view in history ever having. Fans were automatically assuming it was going to suck, and I had my doubts because that the fans were going to be wrong on that because it was so heavily shit on by everybody. To me, I felt like there was nowhere that WWE could possibly go other than up. There is no possible way with the talent they have on their roster that they can deliver a show as bad as the fans are expecting. Seems impossible. And Seth Rollins wound up quoting some sort of a tweet a couple of days before the show and said, "Greatest pro wrestling on the planet, period," or something to that effect. And of course, the fans jumped all up his ass about that, and everybody's laughing and tweeting laughing emojis and just literally rolling on the floor, laughing their asses off at this comment that Seth Rollins made. And I was pretty surprised that the fans found that hilarious. Because yes, right now we all hate the WWE product. We think it is complete shit. But when you're talking in broad terms of WWE, and Seth Rollins says that the longest running and most successful wrestling company in the history of professional wrestling has the best wrestling on the planet, and then the fans laugh at him, I kind of want to know why they are laughing at him. I know that WWE's creative sucks, but their talent roster across all brands, the entire WWE umbrella, is the best in the world. Even as recently as NXT TakeOver 25, many of you When we discussed this in the live streams, in Twitter polls, I put a Twitter poll up and I said, which show is better, TakeOver 25 or Double or Nothing? And TakeOver 25 won. Most fans agreed that TakeOver had the better wrestling on the show. I think All Elite Wrestling's Double or Nothing was the more fun show because it was so huge. So I think they had the bigger moments in the more historic show, but TakeOver delivered the better wrestling. So what is Seth Rollins saying here that is so unacceptable to fans? They're all laughing at Seth Rollins like he's the dumb one, while they're saying, oh, WWE isn't shit compared to All Elite Wrestling. Imagine the ignorance behind that statement. Now, number one, I love All Elite Wrestling. I'm going to buy every single one of their pay-per-views. I'm going to follow them closely. I'm going to watch them on TNT. And I'm going to be standing from the rooftops proclaiming my love for them and wishing them nothing but the best. So understand that right up front before you go down to the comments and say something stupid like I'm sucking WWE's cock. Okay? But imagine being that rabid. Imagine WWE hate literally seeping and foaming through the corners of your mouth to the extent where you're ready to say that a company that hasn't even launched yet is better. That would be like us having, a chili cook-off or something. I'm going to have a chili cook-off against some guy. And the guy I'm competing with has been cooking chili for 60 years. And now it comes to the day of the competition for the chili cook-off, and I decided not to make any chili at all, while he's been working for years and years and years on his chili. And somehow everybody is going to vote for me for best chili. That's the only analogy I can think of. You know, yes, All Elite Wrestling had a very successful first pay-per-view, but they have not even started on TV yet. So really what Rollins said, I understand it's going to spark a laugh in a lot of the fans, but was what he said really that untrue? So I think the laughing portion of Seth's tweet was just because of all the frustration that we have as fans right now. I'm right there with all you guys. I'm up here on Mondays, 9 times out of 10. I'm shitting all over Monday Night Raw. I'm barely paying attention to the product since WrestleMania because it's been so boring and so repetitive and so redundant and just not good at all. But at the same time, you have a pay-per-view like Stomping Grounds that was so poorly booked. And it was loaded with rematches, and it was in a really bad position coming after a Saudi Arabia show and a really jumbled up May and June pay-per-view schedule that was really turned upside down by Saudi Arabia. And you've got the stupid pay-per-view coming up that you don't even really need to have. And what happened? The WWE talent went out there and put on a good show. That was a fun show. I sat right here and watched it and enjoyed damn near every match. We got the outcomes that we wanted for the most part. We had good wrestling. We had exciting wrestling. We had a cruiserweight match on the kickoff show that was absolutely off the fucking hook. And for the most part, it was a great night of wrestling. And the WWE talent went out there and delivered that on a night when no fan was looking forward to it. The ticket sales were shit. The crowd was, heavily tarped off. It was probably half full at best in that arena. It literally felt like nobody cared. But the show was still good anyway, and a lot of credit needs to be given to the fans as well. They were jacked for that show. They were jacked to be there, and they seemed all in, no pun intended, on that night in Tacoma. So I think Seth Rollins proclaiming that WWE is the best wrestling on the planet is really not a fucking stretch. But fine, if you want to laugh at that, you want to be mad about that, and you want to read into it, go right ahead. I kind of think that's a waste of time, but do what you got to do. Seth Rollins also called out Will Ospreay, who responded to one of Seth's tweets as well. And Seth Rollins called him little guy or fella or something like that. Very condescending kind of tone. He put over Ricochet. He's like, we already have a version of you here. He's a lot better than you. As a matter of fact, he won his first singles title on the main roster tonight in a great match. And he really put over Ricochet. And what happened? Fans got pissed. People were saying that Seth Rollins was condescending, had a condescending tone in his comments to Will Ospreay. Condescending tone? What the hell is wrong with people? Have we all turned into a bunch of pussies? Condescending? I'm assuming none of these fans were alive or born during the Attitude Era times, because if they were, they sure wouldn't be able to handle that competition with talent barking shit back and forth. Oh my God, if we had Twitter in the 80s and 90s, I promise you, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose are going to seem like choir boys compared to the shit that those guys and gals would have been saying to each other back in the 80s and 90s. This is nothing. And you've got respected people like Wade Keller yelling at Rollins for being condescending. Like, seriously, have we become that thin-skinned that something like that, something that Rollins said, would be taken that badly by the fans? What it comes down to here is fans are just frothing at the mouth. They are chomping at the bit to be pissed at WWE. I'm very much in favor with that attitude because I think WWE's product has been ass also, and I think some changes need to be made in that company. And the more the fans and the talent speak up about how mad they are, the better chance we have of seeing changes. But some of the logic is just not adding up here. I promise you, if anybody in All Elite Wrestling would have said something like that to someone in WWE, called someone else little guy, or used a condescending tone, everybody would think it was great. They would think it's spirited competition, and it's all healthy, and the wrestling fans are benefiting from it, and if you're offended by what they said, then you're just a snowflake. Then you're just an SJW. It blows my mind that a wrestling audience that is so ridiculously full of young people that like to toss around those stupid words all the time, like snowflake, like SJW, they seem to be the ones that are the most pissed off at Seth Rollins. Well, who is the snowflake now? You can't handle Seth calling someone little guy? You're going to freak out? Get over yourself. And let's talk about what else Seth Rollins said. Like I said earlier, he was a guest on the latest Sports Illustrated Media podcast, and he said a few things about Dean Ambrose. He barked back at Dean for what Dean said on the podcasts. And I'm going to paraphrase here or read a couple of quotes that he said in this interview, one of which was, quote, "Ambrose can do whatever he wants. He's a big boy. He's got his big boy pants on. He can go out there and say whatever he wants, but the bottom line is not everybody's equipped to handle the rigors of WWE and the schedule and how it affects you mentally and emotionally." He would then add, even putting Ambrose over here, saying Ambrose gave everything he had to the company for the entire time he was here. He put his heart and soul into the travel, into the schedule, into the injuries, into the work in the ring, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, he took his ball and went home. Or he went elsewhere, at least. And I think it's a little presumptuous of him to get on a podcast and talk down about the company that gave him such an opportunity. He would also go on to say a couple of other things, too, that I don't really think were that bad, and I quote, he says, "I know Moxley is doing super well for himself right now, and I am happy for that. But I don't think there's any reason to hop on a soapbox and complain after the fact. You need to take the first step, and that's looking in the mirror and asking yourself, did you do every single thing you possibly could to make yourself and your situation what you want it to be? If the answer is yes, you did, then you can go elsewhere and complain. And if you feel good about it, if that's where he's at mentally, then go right ahead. But if he hasn't done that and looked in the mirror and made that decision, maybe he should look and think about that, and that goes for any other disgruntled talent, past or present." This is the comments that the fans considered to be Rollins throwing Ambrose under the bus. I probably heard that stupid phrase 10 times today, as if these people have just heard it for the first time. Rollins threw Moxley under the bus. Really? He did? Doesn't look like it to me. What in the world is fucking wrong with those comments? He didn't take a shit on Ambrose. He put him over before he offered his criticisms, just like Moxley did to the WWE. Was Moxley throwing the whole WWE under the bus in Jericho's podcast? Kind of, but what did he do? He put him over. He said he thanks them for his opportunity. He wishes them no ill will. He wants the company to get better, not worse, and then went into his criticisms. So I don't really think there's anything wrong with what Moxley said or what Rollins said. I think both guys were completely entitled to their opinions. And for the fans to be so outraged over a simple response, basically the fans would prefer it if Seth Rollins and everybody in WWE just laid back and took it. What was Rollins supposed to say? Oh yeah, we suck. Of course he's going to defend the brand. Of course he's going to stand firmly behind his team and say we are the best out there. And we're going to go out there and prove it. I think the talent had a lot to prove during Stomping Grounds. They went out there and showed us that they can still give us a good show even when WWE's creative is in the fucking toilet. And they proved it that night. And so I think this is good. This is all so good for us as wrestling fans because now, if you can not only get the companies going against each other, if you can get the talent barking back and forth on Twitter, Twitter is something that we didn't have in the Monday Night Wars. Could you imagine during 1997, 1998, 1999, during all of those years, if every WWE wrestler and every WCW wrestler had a fucking Twitter account? Jesus, man, that would be a fun time to be alive. So I think social media is only going to add to the excitement of the competition between these two brands because now you can have the talent jawing back and forth with each other. And I think that's great. And I was laughing at the arrogance and the sheer balls of these entitled fucking fans to try to speculate on the relationship between Ambrose and Rollins. Dudes, they're homies, okay? I promise you, they have each other's cell phone numbers. If one of them wants to talk privately, they probably texted today. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think that Seth said anything terribly wrong, and I don't think that Moxley said anything terribly wrong either. Neither guy spoke with any malice. Neither guy was out to throw the other one under the bus or any other stupid-ass fucking phrase that you can come up with to describe it. I don't think any of that was really done here. I think both men were just sharing opinions, and that's it. And for fans to get this bent out of shape, I mean, come on. We're going to sit here and complain about PC culture. We're going to sit here and complain that everybody is too soft. I got news for you. These wrestling fans are softer than baby shit. Because if they can't handle something like this, they would not have survived the Attitude Era or the Monday Night Wars. There's no way they were alive during this. Because if they were, they wouldn't have these stupid opinions. So, let me know what you think about this nonsense in the comments below. Are you with me on this? Do you think it's all in good fun and the fans need to relax and let WWE talent and AEW talent talk smack to each other on social media? Don't you think that's going to make the competition that much better? It's much better if you have talent on board and invested with what that company's doing. And if you've got people in All Elite Wrestling that bleed black and gold, and you've got people in WWE that bleed whatever the fuck the WWE's colors are, I think that's going to make it better for the competition and better when All Elite Wrestling launches on TNT, because they're going to have to prove a point, and WWE's not going to sit back and take it. They're going to want to prove a point too, and they're not going to go down easily, you know. And I've said this before. This is not a bear that I think you're going to want to poke. And if I'm All Elite Wrestling, yes, you want to compete. Yes, you want to be legit competition to WWE and offer talent somewhere else to go. But at the same time, you need to understand where you are and that WWE, that is, has a 60-year head start on you. And if you are naive enough to believe that WWE is going to go bankrupt and out of business in 6 months, I beg you, I plead you, go all the way back to preschool and just start over. Because that's the only hope you have. So why don't we all make a deal? Shall we? Because this is the wrestling channel for adults. There's no idiots here. We're not flipping out, flying off the rails, acting like complete fucking psychotic maniacs over here. We're cool on this channel. So why don't we make a pact as wrestling fans, all of us? Why don't we have fun with this? Why don't we watch the competition between All Elite Wrestling and WWE? And stop being so unappreciative of the great time in wrestling that we're all experiencing together right now. There may come a time 20 years from now where WWE goes back to where it was in 1994, or professional wrestling, goes back to where it was, around the mid-90s when nobody gave a shit about it. We're in a boom period right now. Independent wrestling is as strong as it's ever been. WWE's formulated the best roster of talent that the business has ever seen if you combine NXT and WWE's two rosters. You've got New Japan firing on all cylinders like always. All Elite Wrestling, a brand new company going on TNT, the same network that WCW was on during the Monday Night Wars. I don't think times could be better. Yes, WWE's got some work to do. Yes, they've got a shit ton of problems. Yes, the product makes me want to fall asleep headfirst into my oatmeal from time to time. But that's why we have competition. WWE's going to have no choice but to get better. It cannot happen overnight. WWE has got a lot of shit they need to handle and they need to take care of. The product's a mess. The wild card rule makes no fucking sense. You got a million fucking champions right now. You don't know which way is up. You're about to have SmackDown moved to the Fox network very soon, and you're going to have to really uproot your entire product and all of your plans. And shit is a clusterfuck from hell in that company right now. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, if you want to take sides in this war, if you actually are the type of person that needs to pick a side between All Elite Wrestling and WWE, I am not one of those people. I do not need to pick sides. I don't give a shit. But if you are one of those people that need to do that, that's fine. I completely support your right to do that, but don't pretend to be unbiased or be logical on social media or in your arguments. You need to disclose right up front which company's dick you're sucking so we know not to take your responses seriously. And that's the only thing I really ask. I don't like when fans try to apply logic when really they're as transparent as glass. You can see right through their motives and you can see right down into their soul and you know exactly what their empty fucking brainless heads are thinking. They're thinking that I hate WWE no matter what. And I think that's kind of a silly attitude to have. I want WWE to get better. I don't want to see the shit that we see on TV every week. But I also want to be fair in my arguments and my criticisms. And I don't see a whole lot of fairness on social media when it comes to this stuff. And the Seth Rollins thing really cracked me up. So if anything I said here pissed you off or you're flying off the rails, I'm just going to sit back and laugh and call you a snowflake. And that's coming from one of the most liberal motherfuckers in the world. And even I think these people are acting like snowflakes. So why don't you stop it, grow a set, and be a wrestling fan? Y'all have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.